once again, I really want to welcome you to this program today. So thank you very much. And I will say welcome once again. So we will just go through these dimensions quickly, and we can be able to also bring it to the fore with the times that we are in now, which is the COVID-19 pandemic time. What are some of the features we will need to display, which are transformational leadership skills? And I told you, because of the time, we will not be able to begin to compare what the transformational leadership dimensions are vis-a-vis the transactional leadership dimensions. And so the first one we said was idealized influence. The second is inspirational motivation. The third one is intellectual stimulation. The fourth one is individualized consideration. So I brought this diagram again for you to see them. So idealized influence. So normally a leader who is high in idealized influence would be a leader that is able to set a vision for the team. A leader who is able to, show direction, who is able to also set clear goals that the subordinate would understand, and we also be able to move the subordinate towards those goals. And another attribute, or what you would call a behavior of a transformational leader, is that it's a positive role model. He walks the talk. It's not like, oh, go do as I say, not as I do. And so the transformational leader is a leader who is able to what? Who is able to show direction. And that is why I am always of the view that when you are a leader, you might have moved from what they call from a skill-based approach, from a technical skill to a concept to human skill and conceptual skill. But one thing is given, that a leader, for you to be able to impart, greatly in your subordinates, it is believed that the technical aspect of the job, you understand it very well, to the extent that you can begin to relate with them, sit down, fold your sleeves, and you can begin to coach them, mentor your subordinate to become transformational leader. So this kind of leader who is an idealized influence, describe leaders who act as strong role models. I've said that they walk the talk. They are in the battlefront. They don't hide behind, and motivate subordinates to walk beyond their self-esteem. They are able to, make the subordinate do more than they expect they could have done. And so your boss will always heap praises on you with little opportunity, rather than bringing you down, be able to tell you the great things that you need to do. That is so display high standard of moral behavior. Remember what I said, morality is a key part of it. And so you must, and the values of the organization is able to tell you the values. And so every leader must know what are the core values of an organization. If you are sleeping, like in listing, you have what they call the Clipper values. And if I'm sleeping, I can tell you what the Clipper value is. In every organization, so you need to know the mnemonic of your values in your organization. Your subordinates, it's like the national item, you need to be able to tell them, and you need to live it. You need to be living the values. You need to understand the organizational vision, the mission, the purpose. What is the purpose of your organization? And you begin to make them to see the purpose and work towards the actualization of. Leaders are consistent rather than arbitrary. A leader is not haphazard. A transformational leader who exhibits idealized influence behavior is not haphazard. It's methodical, it's meticulous, and does things in an ordered array, in an ordered manner. So these are some of the characteristics. Instill pride, it makes the subordinate feel good. Sometimes those kind of leaders, what they do in the office, in the workplace, is to go to meetings, board meetings, management meetings with their subordinates. Or when they are in meetings, they engage their subordinates, say, stand by. When I come back from this meeting, I'm going to give you feedback. So those are the kind of the behavior of an idealized influence leader. So I'm going to say, but there are a lot of behaviors that they also exhibit, which I have itemized here. They demonstrate an inclusive vision, walks the talk, address crisis head on. So as we have now, a transformational leader in a COVID-19 time, even though we are teleworking, we'll still be able to communicate clearly to you. We'll be able to sit you down, not having meetings for the sake of ticking the boxes. that I am entering meeting. No, it's not just calling meetings. You still need to, an idealized influence leader will still need to respect the normal boundaries. When we are in the office together, when you want to send email to anybody, what do? You try to look at the calendar. The question is that, do you still do that? I said the idealized influence leader is consistent. And so those of us that are here right now in this COVID-19 time, I believe that we will go back with what we've known here and still begin to behave the way we were behaving. Those boundaries we used to maintain. So for example, your subordinate right now has kids at home, he has to do other things. Don't just take it that because he or she is at home, what you need to do right now is just send emails, just call impromptu meetings. We are going to the meeting right now, and this, you need to join me in 5 o'clock. And also, what is the closing time? If the organization has communicated 5 p.m., when somebody is teleworking, why should it change? Why will you still be calling the person at 9? An idealized influence leader will not do that. It will maintain the normal boundaries. And what you also want to do is to communicate clearly. So for example, what are the expectations? KPIs will continue. Performance appraisal will continue. Tracking of performance will continue. How do you communicate? No ambiguity. So those are the characteristics. Then I put some features here, which you will actually know. Essential behaviors required from an ideal in a tumultuous time, in a crisis time. Reassure subordinates that obstacles, crises, or difficult times, even though they are here right now, but we will overcome. They will soon be over. And begin to tell the subordinates in terms of how the person should stay safe. You don't just score to say, oh, I gave you a job, have you delivered? Oh, you didn't deliver. And begin to take time. And remember, that level of relationship, which is not just transactional, the organization has paid you. The organization pays you for this. Okay, you are even working from home. Or what do? We are paying your salary. No, you must continue to live the kind of values, the kind of ways that you were living prior to this time. You must reassure. So for example, if your organization is the one that is going to slash salary and you get wind of it as a leader at this time, there's no need of keeping it secret. Call your subordinate, sit your subordinate down, try to understand. These are trying times. We cannot continue to live like this. The organization is not making money. And there's what they call the transformational leadership of organization. The organization must be clear right now. Are you cutting salary? Explain to employees why you need to cut salary. Are you cutting because you want to make sure that you don't tell anybody, give anybody service no longer required, and you want to continue to, you want to reduce salary so that you can accommodate people. You want to, so anything you want to do, it has to be very, very clear, and it should be consistent. And so a leader at this time, you need to, more than ever, because there's a lot of uncertainty, people are not sure if by tomorrow their job will still be available. And so there are a lot of stress. The stress hormones, the cortisol, is already on a very high level and sometimes on the on mode. And at this time, don't forget that the well-being of your subordinate is also very critical. So communicate clearly and explicitly with subordinate and discuss issues around maintenance of boundaries and possible changes or challenges. Show interest in the well-being of your subordinates, children, education, security. Children are not able to go to school right now. So how is it impacting your subordinate? And does your subordinate have a nanny? If he or she doesn't, how does it affect? And how do you cover? So those are the things that an idealized influence leader would have to consider in a tumultuous time. Go beyond self-interest. Be present in the life of your subordinate at this time. It's very critical. So I have put some idealized influence that you can put into practice. You can read this at your spare time. In terms of how do you put it into practice on your day-to-day. Let's move to inspirational motivation. Inspirational motivation really is that leader who is able to motivate and inspire the leader to the subordinate to do beyond what the subordinate ever imagined possible. It takes the subordinate to a higher pedestal. He or she always ensure that the subordinate gets feedback at the appropriate time, give performance at the right time, ensures that performance is not only at the end of the year or when a subordinate does what is wrong, but that when a subordinate does right things, you are able to say, look, and note and have that conversation. And don't always have conversation only when there is an escalation from somebody. Have one-on-one. So even in a COVID-19 time, you should still have one-on-one, not only to discuss targets. No, discuss how are you feeling, how are you doing, how are you coping, what is happening, are you able to do this, are you able to get that, are you able to do this, have you gone, so are your kids okay? So those are the things you're able to motivate. So for example, your subordinates, is he or she doing training? Currency has gone up, the dollar exchange rate now has skyrocketed. How is he or she coping with school fees and all that? So, for example, students are on holidays now. Some people are not earning salary. So, if school resumes, what is going to happen? Have those conversations. Sometimes those conversations can improve their emotional well-being. So, such leaders also inspire and motivate. So, then I want to go to, in a COVID-19 time, what you need to do. So, I put a lot of these. Time is really, so essential behaviors required from an inspirational motivation leader in a crisis time. One, talk optimistically about the future. You need to talk optimistically about, we know that this is a challenging time, but we're going to come back. We're going to come back stronger. You need to do this. You need to do that. Talk enthusiastically about what needs to be accomplished. What do we need to accomplish at this time? It's very critical that we do that. Articulate a compelling vision of the future. What future do we have together in this organization? What do we know? Don't be afraid. Your job is secure. We will write this together. We will overcome. Provide an exciting image of what is essential to consider. Express confidence that goals will be achieved. So we put, inspire. What are those things? How do you put inspirational motivation to practice? Intellectual stimulation. This one is critical. I need to rush this one very quickly. Leaders stimulating subordinates to think through issues and problems for themselves. This is a leader who is able to believe, stimulate the subordinates to begin to even provide solutions to things that the subordinate wouldn't have been able to provide. Give opportunity to the subordinate to be creative, to be innovative, to be able to bring ingenuity into the workplace. In a COVID-19 time, this is a challenging time. Don't believe that you know all as a leader. Still, have conversation. We know that when you are in physical presence, it's very easy to bounce things off your colleagues. Still bounce it off. Send them WhatsApp, email, quickly. What do you think about this? How do you think about this? Management is saying this. What do you think about this? Can you help me with this? Can I help you with this? Can you get me this? These are how you stimulate your leader, your subordinate at this time. We say this is a rational side of transformational. Leaders are consistent rather than arbitrary. Very critical. Let me go to some of the features that you need to imbibe in a COVID-19 time. Suggest new ways of looking at how to complete assignments like we are looking at now. Listening was not doing virtual training before now, but times have changed. And so as what you call an intellectual stimulation leader, you need to begin to look at it now. Does it mean that my subordinate will not do paid training because we are on a crisis time? Are there training that we'll be able to do? How will it work? Are we going to engage a vendor? Do we need to begin to look at training? So for example, if you are having regulatory training, how does it work at this time? What do we need to look at? If you are supposed to be doing interviews, some organizations now have stopped interviews entirely for job recruitment. Why not take this time for jobs that are vacant? Have a pool. Do conferencing using facilities like Zoom at this time, you need to look at the advantages of even using a virtual system. What does it mean? If you have a senior person in Kaduna, you have another one in Abuja, another one in Enugu, another one in Lagos, you can do a Zoom and bring your best interviewers to the table to interview candidates at this time. But remember, before now, it was not possible to bring everybody together. You just look for anybody who you can grab. So you must look at the upside. In risk management, we say the upside of risk. In this time, you must look at what are the positive things that you can do. And so a leader who is bullish in intellectual stimulation will be saying these things with a colleague. Encourage rethinking. How do we do things differently? If you are in a COVID-19 time, he said things should not be the way they used to be. In the post-COVID-19 time, you should be discussing with your colleague, what are those things we're going to do differently? What tools do we need to learn? I put there, putting intellectual stimulation to practice. Individualized consideration, for me, this is the game changer. This is the one that is, in fact, it is the one with whom I'm well pleased. Individualized consideration. This one is the one that talks about how the leader try to develop, how the leader is interested in terms of the development of the subordinate, in terms of empowering, in terms of giving the leader, the subordinate opportunity. Pay special attention. And in this particular individualized consideration, a leader, what the leader does is to treat each subordinate as individual. Don't put all subordinates together. Know the individual needs of the subordinates. Don't group everybody together. Know that if there's a Ronke, what does Ronke like? How does Ronke operate? Don't say because Jumoke does X, Ronke need to be treated. Don't say because Samuel knows Excel, Daniel must know Excel, must use spreadsheet. No, if Daniel knows, how do you harness that capability? Right now we are working remote. If you have learned how to use Zoom, you are an expert. So somebody like me now, before starting this training, I was able to watch about 30 videos on Zoom. The question is, if my subordinate needs to now learn Zoom, do they need to pass through the same process? No, I have learned it for them. There's a learning curve. I should be able to put them through as quickly as possible. So leaders should also take advantage of what we are right now. There are lots of trainings, webinars. Ordinarily, you would have paid a lot of money for, but right now, encourage your subordinate. Don't say it's a working time. One of the things that I've noticed in this COVID-19 period is that people are giving excuses, I'm unable to learn because I'm working. The question is that when you were doing physical working, were you not taking training leave to go for training? What is different? Why should a COVID-19 time prevent you from doing training? If you have a webinar 2 hours, a transformational leader who is bullish in individualized consideration should be able to discuss with the subordinate, like this training. Hey, please, I got this training. But look at it. Do you like it? It's something you can consider. So those are the things that a transformational leader who is high in individualized consideration would have to look at. Then, just to wrap that up, let me move to from the perspective of a crisis time. Listen attentively to the concerns of your subordinates. Help others develop their strengths at this time. Promote self-development. If you have webinars, share with your subordinates and let them. Treat others as individuals rather than as a member of a group. Individuals, they have individual needs. Try to understand them. Consider individuals as having different needs, abilities, aspirations from others. And so those are some of the things. I also put it there in terms of what are some of the, how you can practice individualized consideration. I won't have time to be able to tell you the research that I did. I've done about 4 research in the area of transformational leadership. I won't be able to do that. I need to wrap up right now. And I will be able to tell you the research I did on the effect of transformational leadership on organizational effectiveness. I put it there. This slide will be sent to you. I will share the slide. So the takeaway is that the full range leadership model, particularly in the continuum, you must begin to, all these dimensions that I mentioned, individualized influence, intellectual stimulation, inspirational motivation, idealized influence, attributed behavior, you need to begin to look at them, how you can improve on your transformational leadership behaviors. Remember, leadership can be learned. The issue of whether people are born, there are some people that have parents, so there are some genetic part of being intelligent and all that. However, everybody can learn. Anybody who has the mindset to learn can actually learn, and you can become a great leader. And leadership is not about position. And so don't believe that in your organization that it's only those that have position are what John Maxwell called a positional leadership that can be a leader. Even those that are middle management leader, give them opportunity, expose them. If you are going for some external meeting, take them along, expose them. If you have like 4 or 5 subordinates, rotate it among them. If you are going for external meetings, let them be able to. It is very key. But remember, the transactional leadership element. You can't throw them away. There's the Lazarus Fair, which is the one that we say, no. That is the one that the leader does not even lead at all. We have a lot of people in organization, they just, live, even in some, what they call political leadership, they lead by a committee. They don't lead. They are not leading. And so, don't be that kind of leader. Even if you are practicing transactional leadership, let it be contingent reward and management by exception active. Don't do the passive. Be on top of your employees. Make sure that you are able to set the goals at the beginning of the year, monitor it. Don't just be excited of doing appraisal at the end of the year. And so that is what I will say. These are my collection of books. You have the Handbook of Leadership, the one that's starting from the 1970s to the 80s up to the 90s, which is first edition, second edition, third edition, and fourth edition. And these are only transformational leadership books. But remember, I said from the beginning, we have learned emotional intelligence skills. I said it is not enough. You need, that's your repertoire, you need transformational leadership behaviors. And I'm saying here right again that it is still not enough. Next week, we are going to unveil and delve into the world of authentic leadership. You must bring your authentic self to work every day. And so, every leader must bring their authentic self. In a COVID-19 time, you must bring your authentic self into your remote work. You must be authentic. Don't be dubious. Don't try to be smart by half. And that is what I will just say with regard to that. I have these are the hard copies. There are also a lot of soft copies. If you want more recommendation for books, and if you've received the emotional intelligence slide, you will see that I pasted almost like 20 books. Those ones are books that I have. And if you want more recommendations, I can also do that for you. And there are a lot of articles that you can also use. And I think at this point, I will just use the next 3 minutes to take questions. So, Mr. Kilo, if you can just let me know if there are any questions there for me. I would really want to answer it at this time. But before I go, let me just display. We have a lot of competencies in your organization. If you think that we can add value, we have Mr. Kilo is an expert in a lot of management area. He's in our faculty. Myself, I'm also here. And the beauty of it is that in a virtual world, there's no geographical boundary. Some of my professors at my schools in the US, in Hong Kong, they are willing to even participate in the listening faculty, because with virtual learning, there is really no boundary. And so if you think we can add value to you, please knock on our door, but please don't miss the authentic leadership, because by the time we finish authentic leadership, you will know that EI, transformational leadership, and authentic leadership will still not be enough. You will need more. Howard Gardner in 1983 said, you will need multiple intelligences. By the time we finish these 4 programs in this series, we will tell you at the end whether you need more of that. And so at this time, I will really say thank you, but let's go if there are any questions at this time. So I want to stop sharing.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. It's highly insightful. And I believe that our participants enjoyed it. We have some few questions. And
okay, I want your video to be on so that they can see you.
Okay. Hope I can be seen now.
Let me see. Yeah, I think they can see you now.
Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so the first question came from Suleiman Ibrahim. He said, Doc, from one of the features of transformational leadership, which says that it is based on mutual reciprocal relationship between the leader and the subordinate.
Yeah.
Does it mean it gives the subordinate conformity to speak up when a leader makes a mistake, most especially in a gathering?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Sorry, you said what's the name of the person?
It's Suleiman Ibrahim.
Okay, Suleiman. Okay. So thank you very much. That is a very brilliant question. I really appreciate that question. As a transformational leader, and that is why I say that if you have just transformational leadership behaviors or skills, it's not enough. And because as a transformational leader, one of the things you would have learned is what you call individualized consideration, which is that you want your subordinates to self-develop, and intellectual stimulation because you want your subordinate to speak up, to be creative, to be innovative, give them opportunity. However, emotional intelligence tells us that when you want to relate with your boss, particularly when you are in an external environment, you must understand the environment that you are or where you are, and you must begin to apply what you call the situational approach to leadership, which is another leadership that we did not speak about here. To say that your intelligence now will now come in EQ to know that I can correct my boss. However, EQ made you understand that you should also make your boss to do what? To look good. When you go back to the office, you can make some correction. But transformational leadership also make it understand that when you are a boss, if you know that this your subordinate is the one that is technically sound, that knows the job, that understand the rudiment and the fundamentals of what you are going to deliver, a transformational leader who is very high intellectual stimulation will have to sit down and say, look, I have trained my subordinate to deliver, and be very satisfied and be very happy that right in that forum, my subordinate is going to be happy. Because if your subordinates are doing well, it means that you are doing well. Because leadership is about influence. And if you are able, and people see that you are able to grow your people to take over from you, then that is the kind of leader. However, a subordinate must know where he or she needs to interject and when it needs to be skillful in terms of when feedback. Remember, feedback doesn't only go from the boss to the subordinate. Subordinate can also give feedback, but how feedback is given is very, very important, and it's good for you to know that. So I think that is how I would answer that question.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Then there's Anna from Peter Shodipo. Can we apply transformational leadership to all subordinates? How do you deal with a lazy or difficult subordinate?
Okay, so thank you very much, Mr. Shodipo. That is also a brilliant question. So the truth of the matter is that every leader is leadership. You are steering the ship as a leader. And so a leader is not just a position. You are supposed to harness and bring out the best in your subordinate. And so the toolkits, the dimensions that what you would call that Bernard Bass has given is that you can always know where your subordinate is and what you need to apply at any time. Remember, the beauty of the full range leadership, and that is why we always call it the full range leadership model. And so if you have a subordinate who likes to be what you call followed up in everything, you might say that he's lazy, but it might mean that that leader, that subordinate is operating at a lower level of capacity. Or it might also be that, have you been able to study that subordinate, whether he has a low cortisol? Is he facing stress? Because if the stress hormone is on the on state, then there will be a challenge. Or what we also said, are you sure the brain of the subordinate is functioning at optimal level? Or does the subordinate need training? Does he or she need coaching? Does he need mentoring? And so you must begin to look at that and know that it is also your responsibility. Leadership comes with a lot of responsibility. And at the end of the day, there are those who are not fit for certain environment. like they will say, not everybody wants to go to school. Not everybody wants to be a lawyer. Not everybody wants to be a doctor. But you must be seen to have done your part. The first thing I do when I go into early leadership position, when I was working, I tell my subordinate that if I am leaving this organization and they have to go and bring somebody from outside to come and replace me, I have failed, you have failed. And everything I will continue working with my subordinate from the day one I've joined any organization. Is in most organizations where I work, if right from even the early days, they used to call me rabbi. In fact, I want to pass everything that I have to you, to be very frank, because if what they call common good, if what I know, you know it, then the work will be better. But it is important for leaders to know that it is part of their responsibility to look at these dimensions, particularly individualized consideration. Do you treat Paul like, oh, when Peter that just left and we recruited you, he came in and he was running, you know, but today you have come in and you are looking, I need to teach you how to do report. But remember, people are different. Why don't you take, look at Paul, who just came in, as Paul and not the Kesenian that has left the organization? I think that is how we answer that question. But it will get to an extent that if the person is not teachable, if you cannot stimulate that person, if you cannot put that person through training, but don't forget, if that person wants to choose training, make sure that a part of your appraisal, personal development, you know what he's choosing. What are those areas where he has gaps that he needs to fill? What are those areas where the competencies that you think he needs? You should channel his training, his development towards that. Don't be a stranger to the life. So you must be present in the life of your subordinates. That's how we answer that.
Okay. We still have more, but
we need to, yes.
Yeah, most of them are appreciations, but
Yes.
there's one, we need the highlights and characteristics of transformational leaders as against other forms of leadership.
Yeah.
How can a leader balance both transactional and transformational leadership? It's coming from Yemi.
Okay, so let me answer that one. Maybe that will be the last one. The other ones, we can always take them offline. You can balance it by knowing that, to be very frank, the starting point is transactional. So everybody in the workplace have a transactional relationship. So you are employed. You are not doing a non-governmental work. Even you are being paid. So there's a transactional element, right? But it's just to begin to know that you need to move to the higher ground, and knowing that at the end of the day, you need to begin to develop yourself with this kind of training. And sometimes it might be that even within your team, invite people. It might not be listing, it might be listing to come and speak with your team. You can arrange that with HR, even if, so it is important for us to know that if there are learnable skills, there are learnable behaviors, and once we learn them, we'll continue to improve. It's just like a child that is growing up. We learn to walk, we will first of all crawl, and as you see, you begin to walk, begin to talk, begin to run, and that is how leadership is. Leadership is a learnable skills. But we need to always know that, consciously know that we need to exhibit more, that we are in a continuum. That continuum starts from the extreme left, transactional, extreme right, transformational. And we want to move to become more effective towards the other extreme of transformational.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And I think you have done a great deal about on the questions we have asked so far. Stephen is just expressing an opinion. He said that I'm of the opinion that the environment you work dictates the type of leadership style to adopt. Is this a fair assumption? And then Mr. Pius, you wrote so, what you have here is quite long. My question is, how does a leader who wants to practice this skill, but is limited by the conflicting pressure from the organizational environment? The truth is that we cannot answer
environment,
all of them at once. So by the time we are going to send the materials and the update, we are going to incorporate a session that will answer all these questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
please.
Okay, so thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, for participating, and please stay safe and know that these times are challenging times. And if you have colleagues, if you have parents, if you have those that are in the vulnerable group, speak to them. If you have uncles, extended relationship, I think this is the time for, even though we are maintaining social distancing, you can still call. People psychologically, people really need people to speak with them at this time. Please do that. And if you can also extend little financial aspect in terms of palliative to your loved ones, no matter how small, I will encourage that. And please stay safe. And I hope to see you next week, Wednesday, same time, for the Authentic Leadership Program. And I will say thank you, and God bless you, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you so much, everyone.